Greetings, everyone. It's Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and welcome back to Scare-A-Thon 2024, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. Tonight, we're going to be talking about The Sound of Summer from 2022. It is available now on Blu-ray from Unearthed Films. And this was an interesting one because I probably should have tackled it over the summer. That would have been in keeping, because it's all about cicadas. And if, for those of you who don't know, who live in a region where you don't get cicadas, they're kind of like a big grasshopper slash fly type thing. And they come out in the summertime, and when the day cools off, they make kind of a like fluttering sound, and it's almost like a singing, and you hear them a lot. And every 17 years, it seems like you get the massive, like, oh, this is the summer of the cicadas. And the film is inspired because our British-born filmmaker, Guy, he just goes by the one name Guy, which makes sense because his last name turns out to be Pearce, as in Guy Pearce, the Australian actor. He'd moved to Japan, and he had never heard cicadas before. And suddenly, his nights, not only were they swelteringly hot, but they were filled with this noise of the cicadas. And so he decided to put that on film. And the basic premise is there's a young girl who works at the coffee shop, and she's going about her day. And one day a strange customer comes into the coffee shop, and he's got his face covered with a cloth, and he has a basket full of cicadas. And this comes off as odd to our unnamed protagonist, but she doesn't pay much attention to it. But we follow our cicada man home, and we find out that he's got a lot of women's shoes piled up outside of his house, which means, well, they check in, but they don't check out. And he's been feeding his cicadas on blood so that they become flesh-eating cicadas. And then our unnamed protagonist has a dream where the cicada man comes to her and puts the cicadas inside her. She wakes up, she's itching. It's bad news from there on out, because she's getting these strange rashes and she can't stop scratching. She goes to the doctor. He says that it's probably psychosomatic, and he gives her an antipsychotic medication, which doesn't seem to do any good. And before long, we get into some pretty nasty body horror where she's digging around in her body, trying to get the cicada particles out. And that's before things get really weird. This is the feature film debut from Guy, after having made some successful short films, including Difficulty Breathing and The Rope Maiden. And The Rope Maiden, it turns out, is a shorter, maybe like 15, 17-minute short film. And it's kind of a send-up of the August Underground films, where it's kind of like the do's and don'ts of making a snuff film. And then Difficulty Breathing feels like kind of a dry run for this one, because most of it seems to take place inside of one room. We have a young woman who is attacked, and she becomes a recluse and becomes agoraphobic and is afraid to leave her house. And so it's kind of a play on that paranoia, think along the lines of Roman Polanski's Repulsion, where she's terrified to go out, she's terrified staying in, and basically just kind of loses her mind. And while I will say that I think this feature film feels a lot like a short film that gets a little bit too stretched out, some of the scenes go on a little too long for my tastes. And while the film is only 75 minutes long, there's a part of me that wishes he'd maybe trimmed another 10 minutes off of it. But there's a really great idea here. And I was so intrigued after watching the extras on the disc, because there are a couple different Q&A sessions at various premieres for the film, as well as almost 75 minutes of behind-the-scenes footage. And as I've said before on different episodes, if you become friends with the filmmaker, you kind of get invested and you start really rooting for them. And I started asking myself, who is this guy? And I ended up going to their Facebook page, which took me to their merch site. And now I'm tempted to get a copy of Rope Maiden and Difficulty Breathing. If you go to their Facebook page, it's called Sculpting Fragments, and you'll see they have completed another short film, Two Girls, One Gut, and they've got another feature film that they're working on right now. So go Guy! This is clearly a film made on a small budget, and he is making the most of it. The gore effects are done by a group called Kids Company, and they are pretty visceral. They're still pretty lo-fi, but they're pretty effective. And then there's the cicada man becoming flesh that is truly impressive. And I admired the fact that they had the guts to just put cicada man front and center. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to be rooting for. And hats off to Guy for his feature film debut getting picked up by Unearthed Films, who have given it the gold star treatment. And I apologize for letting it sit on the stack for so long. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and looking forward to seeing what you come up with next. In the meantime, pick up The Sound of Summer from Unearthed Films, written and directed by Guy, with a score by Microchip Terror. And this is Scare-A-Thon 2024, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. There is less than a week left to October. Please go to the link down in the description of this video and make a donation today. Now is the time to make your voice heard and to make a difference for these women in need. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.